A buyer and a seller agree on a purchase price for a property. They go through the whole rigmarole, they order an appraisal, and the appraisal comes back with a value that's dang near dead on, exactly the same as the price that the buyer and seller agreed upon. Has this ever happened to you? Of course it has. It happens to everybody. The question is why? And we're going to talk about that in today's video. Hey folks, my name is Jimmy Roberts, your local real estate professional. And today, like I said, we're going to talk about why exactly is it that 90% of the time when a buyer and seller come up with a contract price for a property, the appraisal price is dang near dead bang on exactly the same as the price that those two came up with. Well, first off, let's do a little bit of background. You guys may not know this, but the appraisal industry really hasn't been around all that long. It was started back in the 1980s, the late 1980s, as a direct result of the savings and loan crash, right? What happened was Congress passed a law, as you know they tend to do. They passed a law and they said, wait a minute, we got to figure out a way to separate the valuation of real estate with the actual selling of real estate. So they did that. They created this new class of professionals called real estate appraisers. Their whole goal with the real estate appraisers was to provide an independent analysis and review or evaluation of the real estate that was being sold and marketed by the real estate agents. Because prior to that, it was the real estate agents valuing their own deals. As I'm sure you can probably see, a little bit of a conflict of interest there. And, why would I mess up my own deal? That's just the reality of the situation. But anyway, back to the situation. So they created this class of valuers called appraisers. Now here's the thing, and this is where it gets really funny. Who were the first appraisers? Yeah, they were real estate brokers. The first appraisers were real estate brokers, and that group of broker/appraiser eventually blossomed off and start setting up standards and all that other stuff that we use today in our appraisal valuation part. But the key here is that they were initially real estate brokers. That's important because a lot of the techniques that were developed later on were based on the same techniques that real estate brokers used to sell properties before appraisers were even created. Okay? So they come from the same seed is what I'm trying to say here, right? So now that we got that history lesson out of the way, let's answer the question. Why is it that 90% of the time, maybe not 90, that's kind of a lot, 85% of the time, whenever sellers and buyers come up with a purchase price for a contract, that purchase price is usually mimicked by the appraisal value? Well, number one, especially if the property is listed on the local MLS, the first reason is data. Appraisers and real estate agents use the same real estate data, or at least they should, right? Real estate data is aggregated by a lot of different sources, but it's usually 98% of all real estate transactions, especially from a residential standpoint, are housed within the MLS databases. They're also owned by another company called CoreLogic, but we're not going to talk about them. But generally speaking, 90% or 95%, probably even 98% of all real estate transactions are housed in somebody's local MLS. And if you're in a specific area, what data are you going to reference your data, right? To see what other properties sold that are similar to the one that I'm currently listing. Where am I going to find that data? That's right. I'm going to go to the local MLS. Appraisers know this too. That's why they go to the same data source that the realtors use. Same data. Realtors should be using the same data as appraisers. And if you're using the same data, theoretically, you should at least be in the same ballpark. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's how it should be, right? So reason number one, data. Both appraisers and real estate agents tend to use the exact same data. Number two, as much as I'd like to tell you that being an appraiser gives me some super duper power, and I'm just so much better than all of the other real estate brokers out there when it comes to valuing property. The reality is not really. I've just had a lot more experience specifically valuing property. Early in my career, I was a real estate agent. Now I'm a real estate broker, but early in my career, I was a real estate agent. And quite frankly, at least from a rudimentary standpoint, a lot of the techniques that I learned as a real estate agent, I still apply today because they were good valuation techniques, right? I couldn't, earlier on in my career, I couldn't go as granular as I can go now to give a lot of basis and understanding behind why one property is valued at a different value than another, but I can get myself in the ballpark for certain. And again, remember, appraisers and real estate agents come from the same seed. They started initially using the same technique. Again, if we're using the same data and we're using similar techniques, we should be in the same ballpark. So reason number 2, as much as I hate to admit it, real estate agents, the training that they receive puts them in the ballpark for at least 80% of all the properties that they list and sell, right? That's number 2. And number 3, and this is the one that we rarely talk about. Quite frankly, real estate appraisers generally don't like conflict. You're probably saying to yourself, well, Jimmy, what the hell does that mean? What do you mean they don't like conflict? Well, here's the deal. If I were to do an appraisal for your house today, and let's say you and your buyer decided that that property was worth $100,000, the mythical $100,000, right? And based on my valuation, I found that your property wasn't worth $100,000, but maybe it was worth 80. Wow, that's a huge variance, right? That's 20%. If you were expecting $100,000 and somebody only gave you 80, you're gonna be pissed. There's a problem, right? Well, that problem rains down on the appraiser, because now the appraiser, not only does he have to justify, as he should be doing anyway, how he came up with his valuation, but he's got to deal with the expectations of the seller, the buyer, the real estate agent, the lending company, the loan officer, blah, 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 all the way down the line. And regardless of what he says, nobody's going to believe him. And he knows that, right? Or she knows that. They know that everything that they say from that minute on is going to be discredited. So they have to offset this, what would normally take them, say, 3 hours to do, now is going to take 6, because now they got to document every freaking thing. They got to add in all of these new documents, all these new spreadsheets, all of these additional analysis, all of this additional reference and conclusion material. They have to add all that stuff into the appraisal. And here's the thing. They also know why they're doing all this. Nobody's going to read it. So after it gets to the lending institution, they're going to have to spend another 3 to 4 hours after they submit the report telling everybody to go back to the report to read the stuff that they already submitted. That comes up to an additional 6 hours on a report in addition to the initial 3 hours that they already spent. So that means that this report is now 300 times more of a pain in the butt than any other thing that they're doing. So if it's possible, it's just easier for them to say, you know what, I'm not 100% behind this one, but it's close enough. They hit it with the rubber stamp and they come up with the same value. Now, again, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation, right? So there you have it. The three main reasons why appraisal price is oftentimes the same as purchase price. Now, if you have any other, you know what, before we get too further, I want to know exactly how you feel about that. Did I say something that makes sense? If you're a real estate agent, have you had the same experience? I want to know about it in the comments. And if you are in need of a great appraiser, somebody who will take the time to actually walk you through the entire process, whether you like their final number or not, but they'll at least spend some time to explain it, give us a call, Renaissance Appraisal. Our contact information is going to be listed below. And with that, I will see you in the next video. See you.